If you think of policy drivers in terms of conceptual frameworks or government documents and government agendas that affect thinking and practice in citizenship education, we'll have to look into the latest curriculum review on diversity and citizenship published by DfES in February this year. So this, I think, is the main document in this area now that is going to influence policy and practice of citizenship education in the next 5 years. Now, there are other documents as well that influence thinking and practice in this area, like Every Child Matters, like developing a global dimension in the curriculum, like putting the world into world-class education, the new QCA citizenship framework that is currently under consultation, and there are other agendas also that influence thinking and practice, like the community cohesion or community inclusion agenda, the international development agenda of the Department for International Development, the security agenda, the immigration agenda, the sustainable development agenda. So all these discussions, all these debates, all these government agendas do impact on how citizenship education is thought and practiced in England. Now, I thought I was going to concentrate on the last report, the last curriculum report, and the vision of this report is that in the next 5 years, all schools will be actively engaged in nurturing in pupils the skills to participate in an active and inclusive democracy, appreciating and understanding difference. This represents a major shift in terms of focus for citizenship education, because issues of diversity were not so central to citizenship education so far. Now, this is coming from some of the findings in the document that are related to things like the perception that there is a light touch approach to citizenship education in schools, and that this is a problem. The perception that there is a lack of contextualization and neglect of issues of identity and diversity in schools, and that this is related to a lack of teacher confidence and political literacy. There's also the perception that there is insufficient effective teacher training, and that there is a lack of pedagogical strategies that prioritize dialogue and inclusivity in education. Now, the government makes several recommendations, and I identified 7 key recommendations that I think are going to be very relevant and are going to have to prompt changes in ICT in the near future. So, number 1 is related to this understanding and valuing of difference, this idea of thinking about how we establish our relationship to others, especially those who are different from us, and taking this difference as a source for learning and not something that could be a threat or something to be eliminated. Now, the second one is participation in decision-making processes, the idea of turning schools into democratic institutions where the voice of teachers and the voice of learners are heard and acted upon. Number 3 is an understanding of contemporary controversial issues, global issues, local issues, and the connections between the two. Number 4 is building links with and across communities. So turning schools into kind of hubs where they can catalyze change in society by engaging with what is outside, but also using this process to bring change within. Number 5 is promoting dialogue in the classroom, and this is something that is probably going to require strategies that are very different from the delivery of content. Number 6 is engaging the whole school in discussions about identity, diversity, and citizenship, so that people can learn to engage, again, to engage in dialogue about the issues, but also create a kind of a collective process where people have the ownership of the perception of meaning, of their own perspectives and what they think in relation to the issue, their value, their heard. Number 7 is the development of critical and political literacies. Now, critical literacy is defined in the document as the ability to understand how language constructs reality, and language then constructs different perspectives, and how that affects how people make sense of the world. But it also means encouraging pupils to engage critically and challenge their own assumptions about reality and challenge different perspectives. Now, political literacy is not only about an understanding of the structure, the existing structures of the government for political participation and participating in them, but it's also about understanding how the personal is the political, and that, in a certain way, issues of power permeate everything we do. And that the way we engage with others, the way we establish relationships, they are all influenced by historical, social, political issues. And we need to learn to renegotiate this. Now, in terms of content, we would need, for example, to include debates around connections of language, knowledge and power. We would need to focus on issues of difference, voice, representation, culture, identity, alterity and ethics. We would need to make connections between local and global processes. We would need to expose learners to different perspectives, and we would need to provide a theoretical mapping of the key debates that are happening in sociology, in critical theory and cultural studies, in politics, in philosophy, and in other areas. In terms of skills, we would need to develop skills that maybe are not usually the focus of ICT, like participation skills, intercultural skills, conflict management skills, inquiry skills, skills of facilitation, of moderation, of dialogical spaces, for example, critical, political, and transnational literacies. We would need to develop skills of needs analysis, context analysis, problem solving, skills for negotiating change, skills for accountable reasoning and action. Now, in terms of approach, if we take the skills to be important for the teachers, and assuming the 7 dimensions of citizenship education that the government highlights are going to become central, then the skills that we talked about are also going to be important for the students. So our approach to teaching the teachers needs to mirror what we expect them to do in the classroom. So we would need to adopt a dialogical and participatory approach in our courses. We would need to emphasize independent thinking and reflexivity. We would need to take action research as a major tool and embed this idea of reflexivity and critical literacy within action research. We would also need to think about the creation of different learning spaces, different spaces in terms of geography or spatial arrangements, but also of using the outside, using society as a learning space, as a learning stimulus. And also the establishment of links with the wider community to become central to what we do. If we expect them to build links in the schools, we would need to model it ourselves. Now, in terms of how these implications apply to educational studies in general, I'd say that if we think about education and our role as educators in terms of the challenges posed by globalization, if we think about the idea of building the life skills to be able to deal with complexity, to deal with uncertainty, insecurity, and to live and learn from difference. If we put difference also in the center of what we're doing, then that's education, preparing learners for that, should be one of the aims of education. If that is the aim of education, then the implications here could apply to many different contexts in the field of educational studies. So the idea of reflexivity, the idea of critical literacy, political literacy, transnational literacy, the idea of independent thinking, the idea of intercultural skills are things that maybe because of the pressures and the challenges of globalization are now relevant to education in general and not only to ICT. So that's my presentation. Well, thank you very much.